Hi, I'm Angela, and this is the Book Nerdess. This is also a tag. It is reader problems, which is was originally done by about to read quite a few years ago apparently, and most recently was brought back, resurrected, given a breath of life by Ariel Bassett. I saw it there, and I thought I ought to have a go. It's 11 questions. This could either go a very long time or it could go a very short time. Let's hope for the first one. Short. Maybe. I don't know. I'm tired. Okay, question one. You have 20,000 books on your TBR. How in the world do you decide what to read next? This sounds so familiar. The way that I choose to what to read is mood. I'm a mood reader. If I fancy reading it, I read it. That's literally all I do. I do not sit there and go, here's a TBR and I must fulfill it because, well, one thing I've learned in the last year is that ish doesn't work ever. I'm very much mood reader. I'm trying to read more nonfiction, but yeah, I think I've read about 5 nonfiction books all year. So that needs work. 2, you're halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you quit or are you committed? I'm a commitment phobe, apparently. Who'd have thunk? Yeah, I will quit out before I get to the halfway. If a writer's writing or the characters or something just doesn't feel right for me, I will quit. I have no question about sitting there going, nope, I'm not dealing with this. Done. I think it's probably because I'm now 38 and I'm at the point where I'm like, my lifetime is finite. It's small. It's shockingly small. I don't have the time for this. There is an infinite number of books, and I think I'm less likely these days to put a book down because I will have put some thought into, do I actually want to read this? I also read the samples that are on uh, Google Books beforehand, and then I can actually make a informed choice as to whether I want to read it. I also listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, and I will again test out an author and their writing through that. So I don't I don't tend to DNF a lot, but when I do, it's because I do feel like life is short and I don't feel the need to torture myself with a book I don't enjoy. 3, the end of the year is coming and you're so close but so far away on your Goodreads reading challenge. Do you try to catch up? And how? I don't bother catching up because I set my Goodreads exceedingly low. I set it for 10. I'm now at around about 400%, or at least I will be when I've added the novellas that I read recently onto the actual Goodreads. It's been a while. So yeah, I have read about 40 books this year. I've got another 3 months to go. I plan on getting a load of books done. I'm currently reading Joanne M. Harris and her Gospel of Loki. I also have the Testament of Loki by her from my library. I plan on reading those. I want to try reading Throne of Glass, but I'm likely to throw that at the wall because Sarah J. Maas. So I don't tend to have that issue of needing to fulfill this very abstract, very self imposed, arbitrary number of books to have to read. I just read, and I think if I had to fulfill a certain number, and I, especially at the end of a year, I felt pressured to fulfill those, um, to fulfill that number, I think it would detract from reading, and I think this is what these crappy challenges do. They really take away from the joy of reading for me. It's, it suddenly becomes you're in competition with yourself and everybody else, and are you, reading as much as everybody else, and suddenly you're into competition to such a point that you end up with burnout. And this happens like making videos, it's like, oh, hey, I'm having burnout because I can't deal. And that's a shame. So, no, I don't do this. I, set 10. It's a low ball number. Something I'm pretty sure over 12 months, even if it's just one book a month, I will exceed. And that's it. I have that confidence enough that I don't feel stressed. I don't feel pressured. And I get it done. Um, but to sit there and feel like you have to read a lot of graphic novels and a lot of short story collections or poetry to try, or, novellas to try and get to that point of fulfilling, no, bad move. You're onto a loser. You will start losing um, the impetus to read because you might not actually be enjoying it. So don't do it to yourselves. Life's short. Um, 4. The covers of the series you love do not match. How do you cope? I've never actually been in that position. Probably because I buy a lot of my series, if I have series, secondhand. If a publisher changes halfway through, by that point, because I will have waited for the series to end because I'm so broke, or because, and this is more accurate, um, because it has become noticed by me towards the end of its run, I tend to have missed that. Also, in the UK, that doesn't tend to happen as much, so I'm not, feeling like it happens enough that it's an issue. But I can imagine people being like, hey, the whole aesthetic is off. And if you are really a visually focused person, that must be the most annoying thing in the world. Um, yeah, I don't know what I would do if I were in that position. My general thing is like a book's a book. It's what is in between the covers that matters. Um, but I can understand people being, a bit peeved that an aesthetic direction has changed. Uh, so 5. Everyone and their mother loves a book you really don't like. Who do you bond with over the shared feelings? I don't. I tend to be like, yeah, I didn't like that. Oh well, never mind. I think I put on. This is the funny thing. I read a book at the beginning of the year, called American Princess, and it's a erotic romance, and it's contemporary, and it's set at the White House. And it ends up a menage a trois. Um, and I remember reading it the first time because I've read it twice this year. Because I figured I should give it a second go. And actually, the second time I liked it, but the first time I was like, man, this is too much sex. And I think, yeah, there are people who are going to laugh at that one. But I think for me, that was more about being so shocked by it. I was very new into the romance novel arena. And I didn't realize the different subsections. I was so new. I come from science fiction and fantasy, and I loved that part of life. And to suddenly be thrust, Lord have mercy on that word, into this, highly sexualized novel was, something that I wasn't expecting. And I think I'm blushing, so I'm going to move on. But the answer is I usually go to the internet. Twitter is good if you like to be flamed. 6. You're reading a book and you're about to start crying in public. How do you do? I cry. If you are feeling a feeling, feel it. Go through it. It's quicker to go through it than to suck it up. Something I have learned through therapy. I am not ashamed of admitting I do therapy because it is very good for you. Get your yah-yahs out. That could be taken two ways. So yeah, I will cry. The only book that's actually made me cry, recently, in the last couple of years, is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. That was a phenomenal book. The problem, not the problem, but the part that the first time I cried in that book, because I cried twice, was the bit where she sits and says the hardest thing about saying goodbye to somebody who's gone is that they're gone. Paraphrasing. And I was going through grief counseling, and that was exactly how I felt. I was dealing with the loss of both my parents, and yeah, it's really hard to say goodbye to people who have died suddenly. It's infinitely harder in some respects than if you knew that person was dying. So, yeah, um, I did cry. I cried on a park bench. I was sat next door to my best friend. And I was reading that to him because it made me cry at home. So, yeah, that was a thing. And I'm okay with crying in public. I spent a lot of time when I was first grieving my mother crying on buses because I couldn't cry at home. So, I mean, that says everything about home life. But yeah, I kind of am okay with crying in public. Um, a sequel of a book you loved just came out, but you've forgotten a lot from the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, try to find a synopsis on Goodreads, cry in frustration? This is kind of a problem. I don't tend to forget that much about books. There are occasions where something, I liked it, but it didn't quite hit the right mark, and I will forget. Or if it's an audiobook, sometimes I will have slept through some of it, and therefore it's too disjointed for me to be able to remember accurately. But, and that usually happens more with novellas than with long form. But I tend to remember everything, not everything, but almost everything I hear or see. So when I'm reading a book, I'm so invested in that book that I'm literally seeing and hearing it through the power of imagination. I think this is why we love reading, right? And so I will have I will retain that. I might read a synopsis to jog some bits and pieces loose, but I don't tend to. I tend to remember pretty much everything, which is really annoying. Okay. 8. You do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell people nope when they ask? I don't. Mainly because I don't mind. The people that I do loan books to are my best friend's Steph and my best friend slash like big brother. He's not actually my big brother, but he's kind of the person I would consider. Ian, he currently has 3 of my books. They're my Harry Potter books. I'm getting him into Harry Potter. He is, yeah, he's an adult and he's getting into it. He likes Fantastic Beasts. What can we say? Get him young or get him old. You get him whatever way you go. So yeah, so I don't mind lending to those 2 people. The one person I lent to was an ex. I'm friends with him. I will get my book. It is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, from which Blade Runner came from. I will get that book. I've just not seen it in 8 years. So maybe I should just buy a secondhand copy. At this point, I don't think I'm seeing it again. So I don't tend to say no. I might say no to my ex, but yeah, well, I don't think polite comes into it, and I don't think he's actually going to ask. He literally reads only one type of book, and that is books based off of Warhammer 40k, to which I have actually trounced him 3 times. 3! At tabletop gaming, because your girl's good. So yeah, he's the only person in it. He doesn't warrant politeness apparently, but everybody else tends to get loaned a book. 9. You picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? If you are in a reading slump, it means your brain needs other stimulus. So that means go out, see the world, take photographs, take a long walk, take a short weekend away if you have the means to do so. Actually create your own story. It might mean that the stories aren't something that you want to read. Do some music. Use parts of your brain that are not otherwise used by books. Because it's basically saying those parts of your brain want to be utilized. If you are in a reading slump, that's what it is. Take advantage of it. Take advantage. And just go for it. But don't ever feel like, oh, I've got to keep going through all the different books to try and find a book. Failing that, if you are really in that mood to, I want to pick up a book and read it, but I've gone through so many and I just want to read, find a book that is what you would call comfort food. So for me, my comfort food is Tamora Pierce. Her book, Wild Magic, it's a quartet. I literally, they're my comfort books. They are the books that I love to the nth degree. I will pick them up, but instead of just straight reading them, I will watch Mark Oshiro, yes, the author, on his YouTube channel quite a few years ago now. He read those books for the first time, so you get his, mental annotations. And it is the most heartwarming, wholesome, endearing, soft thing I've ever seen. Watching a grown man coo over talking horses and badgers and dragons. And it's the most beautiful thing ever. And if I ever meet that man, I'm going to hug him. Because I'm a hugger. And yeah, that makes me unusual for British people. But yeah, it's one way of getting me out of a reading slump, and they are also the place that I like to go home in my mind to. Other than that is Star Trek, New Frontiers, Excalibur Requiem, or is it Requiem? No, Restoration. Because when I'm really upset about something, I tend to daydream that I'm on that particular spaceship. Nowhere near home, because for me that really does work out as escapism. And that's what reading is about, right? So those are the things I do when I am in a reading slump. Pick up books that I know I love, where my heart and my soul exist, or go out and do something else. 10. There are so many new books coming out and you're dying to read them. How many do you actually buy? 0. I make a list and I wait for them to be either secondhand, because I really do value the charity shops in my area. So they are either raising money for palliative care through hospice that I once worked for. And to give an instance, this place had 14 beds or 14 rooms. And yeah, their budget was like 7 million a year for everything. So there's doctors, nurses, stuff that they do peripherally, in home care, in hospice care, all the medications, all the things that they were doing. And it was such a teeny tiny, eeny weeny little budget. And only, X was actually paid for by the NHS, the rest was charitable donation. And yet the value that they gave to the families was phenomenal. And everybody in that place, from my boss to my colleagues to the doctors to the nurses to the patient's family, they were phenomenal, considering palliative care is end of life care, whether it is immediate end of life or where the illness is terminal but not quite at the end of life point. And so I definitely believe in supporting them, so I will check out that store every time I want a specific book to see if it is second-handed. Other than that, I also do cancer research, and I also do heart research, because I have a hole in the heart. My mum died of a heart condition. I've had more family members die of cancer than I care to think about. And so I want to make sure that people don't go through what I have. And so, yeah, I want to put as much money into the hands of that. And I also literally live 2-3 miles from a cancer research site. So that's even cooler. So I will actually wait for it to be available secondhand. I will also look for it at the library because I believe in libraries so passionately. I love libraries, librarians, I love archives, archivists because I love myself. Sorry. Yeah, hi, I'm cracking myself up. Yes, I volunteer work as an archive in an archivist setting. So I love myself. Um, so yeah, I don't buy it new. If I have to, I will again buy it secondhand, Amazon Marketplace, or Better World Books. I want to make the world a better place, so I will choose things that support literacy projects. So, again, making a better world. So, I will choose to go through those routes rather than buy brand new. Mostly because I am also on a budget, but I also want to, you know, my materialism should have some dividends somewhere in the world. And finally, to round out this rather long video, it's 21 minutes at the moment, sorry. We have come to the final question. Question 11. After you've bought the new books you can't wait to get to, how long do they sit on your shelf before you get to them? Most of the time I buy books, I buy one, maybe two at a time. I'm not somebody who has a book depository account. I don't buy huge amounts of books at one time. I'm on a fixed budget. I have big responsibilities, i.e. roof over my head, food in the table, and all my usual bills. I think anyone who lives on their own has a similar kind of perspective. So I tend to buy cheap, and I buy, either one or two. That said, I have 14 books behind me. Ta-da. And most of them are, 3 months. I do have books that are years from when I was at university that I haven't read, which is terrible. That is terrible. That's when you realise that you're spending money that you shouldn't have spent in the first place. And I think I've learned a lot. At least I hope I have. I think ultimately I will be doing a video on the books that I've not read and sorting out which ones I shall endeavour to pass on to other people. I'm not KonMariing. I'm Swedish death cleaning because there's a little more metal. But yeah, they can sit on my shelves for a year or more. I try to read them when I get them. But at the moment, because I'm also getting books from the library, I'm up against the 3-week deadline, even though I can renew books for no costs, which is nice. It's just that hidden extra time limit does make me feel like, oh, I can't read the books that I've just bought because I've just borrowed these from the library. So I'm having an internal discussion with me about that one. But yeah, they can last a while. So that's the end of the questions. That was question 11 there. I'm going to tag a couple people. I'm going to tag Info's Inklings, and I'm going to tag the Bald Book Geek. Because I'm sure at least one of them has tagged me on something, and I've not responded. Oops. I'm sorry. I've had issues. Lots of them. I'm sorting those out. But I'm here. So, please. And with that, I'm going to love and leave you. And I hope you have a phenomenal time between when you see this video and the time you see my next, because I don't know when that's going to be. But if you like this video, please hit like the thumbs up, I guess it is. Hit subscribe, because I will be putting out more content. I might be doing a lot of tags because They're a lot easier than pulling up TBRs that you're never going to finish. And I don't do book hauls, although I might do. Might do. Um, but yeah, I will also be doing reviews because I will be reading books, because why buy them if you don't read them? But click the bell if you want to also see the videos that come up in your subscribing feed, because yeah, YouTube can be a bit of a pain in the backside. But either way, have a great time and I'll see you soon.